Hello, 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 everyone here in the physical space, and hello to everyone in the digital space. Welcome to our COVID-19 virtual town hall for ensemble artists. I am speaking to you from Tricklock's performance space in the Box in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We'll first begin with a land acknowledgement and an acknowledgement that we are here in this physical space and we are also in multiple spaces throughout Turtle Island. So I would love to pass the mic to someone who is here locally to do a specific land acknowledgement for Albuquerque, New Mexico, and that will be the artistic director of Tricklock. Here is a microphone. Thank you so much, Julie.
Hi, everyone. Oh, goodness. Hi, yes. So we would just like to acknowledge that we are broadcasting here in New Mexico, which is the land of 19 pueblos, as well as the Navajo and Apache peoples, as well as all of the indigenous people who have traveled through this land and who are still here thriving on this beautiful land. So thank you.
Excellent. So I'm going to very quickly review our agenda. We're going to do an introduction of the human beings in this space who are going to be helping to facilitate the work that we're doing. We will do a very quick overview of communication agreements, since this is a transmedia conversation taking place in physical space and digital space. Also, we are recording this conversation so that others will be able to experience it asynchronously several hours from now, a week from now. So I say this out loud so that we all know that we are consenting to this conversation being recorded. In this conversation, we're going to be doing something really simple. This is already going on here, and this is going to be the beginning of more responsive places for us to connect and continue to problem solve. In this conversation, we're going to be providing space for everyone to share what's happening in their area of the world. This isn't strict story circle, so people can share opinions or fears or anything that they want to share. We're going to start off with that. We will then transition to a place where we're going to brainstorm and popcorn all of the different next step conversations we're going to want to have, and then we'll have some time to share the already existent resources that our magnificent community has been putting together online and inside of their spaces in such a beautiful way. So let's start off the introductions. We will not be doing introductions of everyone who is participating digitally or physically for our time management purposes. So we're only having our facilitators introduce themselves. And we ask you to, if you would like to, please visit the, oh, see, you got this. You're doing other people. Yes, please visit the Facebook event page and tell us a little bit about who you are and introduce yourself there so that we can all feel connected. So I will begin us off. My name is Claudia Alick. I am co-president of the board of the Network of Ensemble Theaters. I'm executive producer of Calling of Justice. My gender pronouns are they, their, she, hers. And quick access check-in. I do have a muscle disorder, so every once in a while it might look like I'm looking off to the side or making a face. I am never making a face at anything that we're talking about. Other than that, I've got my water. All of my access needs are met. I will pass the microphone over to the executive director of NET to introduce themselves.
Great. Hi, everybody. I am Alisha Tonsic. I'm the executive director of NET. And I think I'm muted.
Oh, no, you should be muted. Stay muted.
Oh, okay. I should stay muted online.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm learning, probably along with many of you, how this digital stuff works. Luckily, Claudia, who is the co-president of our board, is an expert in these things. So we're thrilled to have her expertise helping us all learn in this moment, where so much has been happening so fast this week. So I am really, really excited to be able to have this conversation with all of you and to just start making space together as a community in person and digitally, and think about the opportunities and possibilities that this new moment we're in is going to open up for us. Let's hand over to Hannah.
Excellent.
Hello, my name is Hannah Fenlon, and I'm currently serving consultant. And I'm happy to see so many faces there on screen and look forward.
Excellent. And we're going to be doing transparent facilitation today. So do we feel like we need to introduce anyone else formally in this space, or should we get this party started? Excellent. I'm going to ask our colleagues who are participating digitally, can you hear me okay when I don't use the microphone? Give me a thumbs up or like a hand wave. It's like, oh, it's all right. Excellent. I am noticing that some of us are participating specifically through phone and not through video. So I'm going to ask for all of us to do something where you say your name when you're talking. So this is Claudia talking. And then, yeah, and I think that should be as much of that kind of housekeeping as we need. We're going to request that people keep their digital space muted if they're not actively speaking. That'll cut down on any kind of background noise. And other than that, what are some of the communication agreements we'd like to hold for this space? Maybe not interrupting folks when they're sharing their piece of the story. That feels like a good one. Anything else?
Make space, take space, maybe. I'm gonna show that one. Okay, make space, take space, and in that, just being cognizant that we've got about 50 folks signed up for this call. This is Hannah speaking, by the way, and we just want to be cognizant of the sharing times. You know, we all have a lot of urgent thoughts and experiences happening in this moment, but there's a lot of us, and we've only 2 hours. So let's be conscious of how we're taking and using space for those 2 hours.
Online participants, do you have any suggestions for communication agreements? This will also give us a chance to test out facilitating folks through the digital space.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm just I don't know if this is like an agreement or I'm just confused about the situation, because usually when somebody talks they get big and so I can see them, but I can only see you.
Just me.
I think it's because we're muted on it. So, right? Because I was muted on my screen,
yes.
it wasn't.
That is what's happening. I was trying to figure out why I wasn't seeing people's faces. That is correct. You're only seeing me because it's triggered by the sound. Oh, wait, and you're seeing everyone. Yeah. All right, I don't know.
I mean, I see everyone small up above, but then when somebody's talking, I have to scroll around to find who's talking. They don't just flash onto the screen like you do.
Abigail is raising their hand, and I think they are about to suggest a button we can hit to change the way you're viewing this. Let's listen to Abigail.
Great, I'm gonna mute.
Top right hand, there's a button that says gallery view. If you click on that, it'll make it so that everybody is the same side.
I have just noticed that on my end, things have frozen.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so if you click the button in the top right that says gallery view, everybody then becomes the same, very democratic, but it will put a yellow box around whoever's speaking. And I think it's just that, Claudia, you're in the same room as everybody else is, right? In the same room as Hannah. So in order, there'll be a feedback loop if everybody else isn't muted.
Thank you very much for suggesting that we click gallery view. I have just done that on my screen, and it's actually helping me to see all of you as well, because I was struggling, because I was like, oh, I can't see everyone, so if someone's raising a hand, it doesn't work. Since we have participants who are also participating by phone, I don't know what your ability is to participate on the chat. So just please feel free to unmute yourself and say, hey, I'd like to say something, if you're feeling like you aren't able to participate. Let's do, I'm trying to see if there's anything else in our framework or overview of this particular conversation. Tag EMF USA 2020. if you want to continue this conversation, or if you're hearing something useful on here that you want to tweet to the world, that's hashtag EMFUSA2020. I would love to take a moment for you to just say what NET is, since that's the organization that's sort of organizing this conversation. And then I would like to kick us off and hear from the community. And we will be playing this by ear. Frankly, facilitating conversations in a digital space can be a little complicated. So I'm just going to, I don't want to call on people. I would love for people to call on themselves. So we're going to see if that works. And we're also going to be doing mixed in the space
If
housekeeping.
the ones
Yes.
present can please turn off your Wi-Fi and operate only in satellite. That will make our connection more stable.
Thank you.
And if you are here in the room and you really need to be connected onto Wi-Fi, we have a second Wi-Fi connection happening that the login information is here. So just have one of us pass this to you if you absolutely need to be on Wi-Fi during this time.
So here's the microphone, so we can just get just a little short overview of what NET is, maybe a little bit about what this Tricklock Festival is, and then we can kick off into this very important conversation.
Sure. Okay. So for those of you who don't know, who might be on the call and new to NET, NET is the network of ensemble theaters. We are a membership organization, a community of by and for artists around the country. We're national. We have about 350 members that are ensemble companies, as well as individual artists and students and practitioners who are co-creators, otherwise interested in collaborative creation or ensemble practice. Though the name of the organization is the Network of Ensemble Theaters, that is interested in the ensemble structure. So many of our members are dance companies, we have some music ensembles, and quite a lot of multidisciplinary work as well. And my computer is doing something funny, but I'm gonna assume that you can still see me, maybe, I don't know. Yep. Oh, okay, I'm back, here we go. So NET basically exists as a resource hub and connection place for our members. We have a grant program that helps to support travel and exchange between members. We convene people around the country. What we're doing here in Albuquerque is part of an experiment of one way of doing that, which is a year-long sort of rolling conference on tour that's happening in many locations all through the year. We are currently in very in the moment conversations about what those gatherings might look like as we come through the next couple of months, and which of them might be digital only, which of them might be a hybrid digital and in-person, which of them might be in-person as we get further away from the moment we're in now. So we're figuring a lot of this out in the moment as you all are all website, ensembletheaters.net. And you can read about how to be a member and some of the other things we do there. I'd love to maybe have Julie from Tricklock talk about each of these Ensemble Macrofest USA events that we're doing through the year. We're doing in partnership with host partners. So Tricklock Company is one of our member companies, and the event that we are here in town scheduled around was imagined as something that would happen in collaboration with their festival. So I'll hand over to Julie.
Excellent. And in some ways, this is your 3 minutes to share, and this also allows me to practice timing.
Oh, good. I'm the practice timer. Okay, hi. So yeah, I'm Julie Hendren. I'm the executive director of Tricklock Company. We are a 27-year-old devised theater ensemble. We're women-led. We are focused on physical work, and then we also do a lot of international work, international collaborations, and The big flagship we have is the Revolutions International Theater Festival, which we have been doing for 20 years. This was our 20th anniversary, and about 3 days into our festival, we have had to postpone and now cancel the entire thing, which has been devastating, of course, both emotionally but also financially. We've been dealing with a lot of artists who were, artists who were in Australia, coming here, then going back to London where they're from and trying to get rid of their tickets and buy them new tickets. We're also really dedicated right now to trying to pay everybody, even though they didn't come, even though with our staff, they're not able to complete the work. I know artists are counting on it, so we're really trying to make sure. And also, I just want to call out that we also have Duke City Rep. Amelia is here. She's also a NET member. We've got dear friends Doug and Kristen from Cardboard Playhouse. They're here. So we've got a lot of people from New Mexico, as well as people from Tricklock. And we have 2 artists from Uganda, our dear friends from Ndede Troupe, which is a fantastic dance ensemble based in Kampala. And managed to get here for the festival. I mean, really things happened so fast that we were already moving. We didn't sort of have a chance to recognize that it was coming down the pipe, and so to speak. And so they leave actually on Sunday, and where they return and have to be quarantined for 2 weeks. So it's pretty intense. So I don't know what to say exactly. I mean, that's kind of our situation right now. We're trying to recoup. We're trying to see if some of our foundations and different support will. I feel like our biggest thing that is the most stress for us is trying to take care of the artists. That's really the thing that is keeping me awake at night, is everybody's got to get paid, everybody. And because of what has happened, we're not able to complete the sort of entire funding cycle, including a lot of ticket sales, of course, that would have happened. We also do a raffle through the festival that's really helpful. Great. So that's really our thing, is trying to figure out how we get paid and how we do that in the correct way, and then what that's going to mean for our organization as a whole. It's not looking good. So yeah, there you go.
Thank you. So I just came up with a thing where I was like, I think I'll just do a hand signal at 30 seconds, or I will do a little chat function to let folks know wrapping up now. Is there someone in the digital space that would love to start us off, share what's happening in their world for a couple of minutes? And that'll also help us to make sure we can hear you. Oh, shoot. Thank you.
And Claudia, this is the start of what will be probably about 45 minutes, an hour of sort of time for folks to share stories.
Exactly. Right. We're going to take about 45 minutes or an hour to try and hear from as many people as possible. So is there anyone in the digital space that would like to speak? All right, I see someone doing a hand. I just can't see who this person is. Tim, let's hear from Tim. I'm going to unmute Tim. Can I? Apparently I can't.
I unmuted myself, so can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Tim.
Okay, great. So hi everyone, I'm Tim. I'm calling from Brisbane, Australia. And I just give you a little overview of what's going on here. I run an immersive interactive theatre company, but I'm also a producer for a festival called Anywhere Festival, which puts theatre into non-traditional spaces. It's a little bit like a fringe festival, but we do deals with businesses to give people free space to perform. And we have about 100 shows, and we were due to be in May, but we've cancelled due to COVID-19. And starting Monday, every event over 500 people is being cancelled due to the federal government. So basically every festival is being shut down, including other festivals I was working on. So basically everything I was doing this year is shut down, which is fun. And at the moment, we're really trying to explore different models different ways of supporting producers. And these 100 shows have an advantage in some way because they're all very small, like 20, 30 audiences. And so our hope is that they might be some of the first kinds of shows to come back when things start to calm down, is that the smaller the audience show, the safer it will be perceived, and that we might be able to slowly kind of step back into producing shows or supporting shows as things get better, and that we might need to shift from focusing all of our efforts in May to being a year-round type festival, where we support people in the sort of ongoing basis, which will allow us to be a little more reactive to disasters and continue and be able to support people like at the soonest possible point when things calm down and people are ready to start to normalize, which I expect is a sort of slow, gradual kind of like as if the whole culture is sick and is slowly starting to get better. You know, we will all slowly like be like we're getting better from the flu and start to come out again. Okay, that's me. Thank you.
I muted myself. Thank you. I muted myself because I was concerned that if we could hear you over the speaker, I might cause a feedback loop. Seems like everything is working well. Let's hear from, oh, and when I give you a hand signal, you still have like 30 seconds. You have time to wrap up. You don't have to end it immediately. Do we want to hear from someone in the physical space again? I love how everyone is so generous, and it's just like, I want to make space for other people. Ah, excellent.
You can come sit here in the chair and be in front of the computer here if you'd like.
Oh, that's
and that
brilliant.
way they'll be able to see you.
I love that. Brilliant. Oh, great. Right behind you. I like that. That works.
Hi, I'm a photographer. I am also Doug, but I make theater and movies and sort of things in Albuquerque as well. And I think that throughout all of these various panics and things, the things that are most lasting with people are the art that we can still make in conjunction with the people that we can still talk to. So this network, I just wanted to speak to how important it seems and how lovely it is that everybody's still talking about the future of their work, not necessarily just the complete devastation that is now, though it is terrible. There will be a new tide of theater, and it will be made by y'all. Thank you for doing that.
And I don't know if you just, oh, you probably didn't see that. We are wiping down the microphone with disinfectant wipes. That's right, safety. All right. Is there someone in the digital? What's that? Oh, Meropi? Excellent, please. And thank you for your support.
Hi, can you hear me? Am I available? Okay, cool. So I got the thumbs up, so I'm just gonna keep talking. So this is Beto O'Byrne and Meropi Peponides with Radical Evolution Performance Collective based in New York City. Just speaking to what specifically how this is impacting us, you know, obviously the stories of the theater shutting down, and specifically in New York, have kind of gotten out, and we're hearing everyone. So most directly is we were in tech and previews with our collaboration with Milagro Theater and El Teatro Campesino in Portland, Oregon, as of right now. We have just been informed that the preview performance tonight has been canceled, and that we're in something of a holding pattern and not really knowing what is happening moving forward with that production. So we're trying to figure out and assess. I was supposed to be in Portland today. Obviously, I was not able to do that, and I had to make the tough call of not traveling at this point in time. So, and then on top of that, we were preparing for our world premiere of our new piece that was supposed to happen in June of this year in New York, and are currently having conversations around the possibility of that still being possible, and we're not quite sure. We're having lots of conversations both with our community, with our teams, with our board about how we sustain through this. And I think I was sharing the concern and the desire to support our artists and collaborators, particularly those who are dependent on the income from our productions through this time period. So I think that's where we are at this moment. Thanks.
Thank you so much. It is incredibly helpful when you say your name and your location and your company. So thank you for giving us context for where you are in the world. I think I'm going to. Who's talking? Is this John?
Yeah, it's John.
Right.
I just wasn't sure if people could hear me. May I speak? My question really, it's not where we're at. I'm John Whitespunner from Bloomsburg Theater Ensemble, and I'm interested to know if anyone is actually still doing performances. We're at a place where we have a show due to open in 2 weeks' time. We haven't yet made the decision to cancel. We're probably going to, but I'm interested in what's out there in the field.
This is Hester. Can I speak? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
This is Hester Kamen from...
I can hear you. I'm going to... Please go right ahead, Hester.
No, go ahead. I wanted
No,
to...
no, I don't know. Speak.
There's a lot of people, this is for you, John. There's a lot of people who are live streaming performances with no audiences there. And that's an option that I'm learning about people taking a lot of the time. But almost everyone I know in the world, all over the world, has canceled all of their live performances. They're finding ways to live stream, and what they're doing for tickets, what we're doing for tickets also, is saying to people, we're basically really encouraging them to donate the cost of their ticket to us rather than having a refund.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask a follow-on question?
Sure.
I'm gonna interrupt as a facilitator and suggest, John, these questions are really good. So I'm going to, hopefully everyone else who's responding will also be responding to the questions of what are you planning on doing with your performances in the future? And what is your second question?
My second question is, we're also considering live streaming, but we're trying to figure out how to, if there's a way to monetize that so that we can charge for whatever that price ends up being so that we can recoup some of the ticket revenue that we had budgeted.
I just wanted to, the mic is being passed to me. I also wanted to add a request as people speak. I know that in some locations, there have been city or local or state ordinances that are limiting the number of people who can gather and that sort of thing. So that context may also be helpful to be aware of. For instance, John at Bloomsburg Theater Ensemble is in a rural place in Pennsylvania, so just having the context. I'm based in Portland, Oregon, and we have a prohibition against any gathering of over 100 people currently. So just adding that sort of context as you speak might be helpful for us all to understand where we are.
Thank you.
Can I say something? Hear me?
I can hear you.
So I'm at Louisiana State University in a performance study program, and one of my colleagues had a show that was supposed to go up mid-April. We're postponing that, but part of the reason Louisiana has a ban on any gathering above 250 people, but LSU has a ban on any gathering above 30 people. So because we run our own theater, we're postponing her show till probably September.
And where we are, as somebody said, in rural Pennsylvania, we do not have any restriction yet. We have a state recommendation of no gathering more than 250 people. We'd be happy to get that kind of number on a regular basis. But so far, no. It's more about how we feel about our community and how our community feels about us actually performing, whether there's an official restriction or not. So we're just trying to figure out what resources there are out there for us to either live stream in a way that we can make some revenue off that. And also another of my questions would be, does anybody know of resources out there? We've heard about small business administration. And I mean, I know our local chamber has got some kind of a business loan at 3% interest. But I'm just trying to gather resources that we can approach in the event that we're not able to do and, you know, get any revenue from ticket sales.
Excellent. Thank you, John. I see Abigail indicating they'd like to speak, and I think I also have someone physically in the space who might want to speak as well. Should I pass the mic to Abigail on the computer?
Can we pass to Abigail?
I shall do that, yes.
I want to invite Anne-Marie to also contribute to John's question.
Excellent.
Yes, two things. One is that performance.
Please go right ahead.
Yeah, performances are, this is Abigail. Performances are still going on in Atlanta, with the exception of the Alliance, and it looks like they're going to run this weekend. I wouldn't be surprised if that shifts, but as far as I know, there's no ban on people gathering yet. I'm not in Atlanta, so I can't speak to that. I can tell you, as somebody who's calling from the South, there is a lot less panic down here, it seems, than there is in other states. As somebody who flew from the North to the South this week, it was very different. And I also want to just draw the attention, Anne-Marie's going to speak in a second, but if you look in the chat box, there's actually a great conversation going on if you don't have the chat box open. And there's a link in there that we'll be talking you through.
That's better.
Hi, everybody.
Hey.
This is Marie Lonsdale, she, her pronouns, speaking from Oakland, California today. Just wanted to bring your attention, as Abigail mentioned, to the link that I just dropped into the chat, COVID-19 freelanceartistresource.wordpress.com. It's kind of long, sorry. But it's a website that Nicole Brewer, Hannah Fenlon, and Abigail Vega and I have been working on over the last 4 days, oh boy, 400 years, to collect resources and links to resources specifically focused on individual artists and small organizations that are affected by the crisis. So this is a collection of links. It is not it's not a place to promote your work or sell things, but it is a place to come and share and receive information about financial support in particular. And if anyone is still feeling scared or concerned, I would highly recommend reaching out to your local arts council or local arts service organizations. These are amazing clearinghouses for information and resource that are available on the local and state level from the government, and they will have information about your specific geographic situation, right? And what the legalities are in your community, because, you know, in Oakland and San Francisco, there are totally different rules and laws in place, and there have been for weeks now, than there are in New York, than there are in Chicago, than there are in Bermuda, than there are in Australia. So we really want to be mindful of local government compliance. but also we want to direct you to this online resource. And we're adding to it literally every few hours. And there's a form on there where you can share resource that you're aware of that might not already be on the site. So
can you repeat?
Come interact with us.
I'm going to interrupt only because we will be sharing all of these resources in about 20 minutes, but we did want to give ourselves at least 45 minutes to try and get an overview, a national and global overview of, before we jump to the solutions, we actually want to find out what are some of our shared places of challenge. So I'm going to model right now, and if somebody else could time me, I'm going to share just as Claudia Alick. I started doing social isolation or social distancing 2 full weeks ago. And I felt like a crazy person. I felt like I was catastrophizing. I did a lot of negative self-talk where I was like, Claudia, get out of your apartment. Go support the Women's Theater Festival. Claudia, get out of your apartment. Go support the Two-Spirit Performance Festival that you've been so excited to attend. And yet I just couldn't, I was very concerned. I'm immunocompromised, I'm disabled. I already do a lot of preparation, protecting myself, just being in the world. It makes me nervous. I feel nervous being on the subway on a regular day, as opposed to when we're experiencing a global pandemic. And then I realized, oh, I should have been listening to my smart inner voice, because it wasn't catastrophizing, and me and my disabled community were actually having the proper response. I'm really excited, actually, that a lot of the skill sets and the beautiful human beings I've been collaborating with over the last 2 years are going to come in so handy right now. But I'm also concerned because all of the systems that we've been using, now everybody is about to start using them, which is exciting and it's full of opportunity. But it also makes me, I just want to make sure that we don't break some of these tools that disabled people have been using to function in the world for so long. I'll also, just frankly, I'm so stressed out. I am so stressed out. I've been on 11 since 2 weeks ago and it hasn't calmed down. So I am doing all of my meditation techniques. I'm reading every article I can that's about this is how you can calm down from stress, control the information coming into your life and all of that. And so I'm hoping that we can also, just again, I just want to invite people to share whatever they need to share. It doesn't have to be, this is exactly the best next step. It's okay to just share a problem since we're all struggling. All right, I'm going to pass the mic to someone else. Do we have someone on the computer or in the physical space that would like to share? Yes, please. Let's pass the microphone. And if you could introduce yourself.
Thank you. I'm Ruanjezi Stephen, the founder and director of the Ndere Troop and Ndere Cultural Center back in Uganda. And we've been here for revolutions, which unfortunately has to be cancelled prematurely. Back in Uganda, at the Cultural Center, we have 81 artists that do 3 shows a week in a situation where you don't have any funding from government. And everything you depend on is from those resources. Now, the country has put up an alert, much as we don't have a case of coronavirus, but there is an alert that everyone coming from so many countries, including the United States, has to be quarantined mandatory for 2 weeks. So when we go back, that's what we shall do. And what that has meant is that all the bookings that we had for these shows have been cancelled. Now we are talking about the welfare of 81 people, many of whom we support their education, their accommodation, their everything, their food. But you're also talking about running a cultural center purely on bank loans, and the interest rate, the lowest, is 25% per annum. So when you cancel this and we go back and I have spent 2 weeks under quarantine, you're talking of a situation where you have to decide whether you're asking girls to go back to their homes, or whether you have shut down this cultural center and the catastrophic consequences. But we are also talking about, I think we should use this opportunity to reflect and maybe thereafter think of what sort of art as artists we need to produce. Have we now entered a situation where we actually now see that man is not the smartest creature on earth? If we can be caged and quarantined by a small virus when we have bombs, nuclear, and have been to the moon and can go, but now we are caged by a small virus. If we can build walls and say no one should come into our countries, but the virus crosses all these boundaries and we shut down our planes and everything, is it time now for the artists to use this recess and create arts that are going to move away from being art for art's sake, but push for policy that is going to change the way we are thinking? Finally, in a situation like ours, where we don't have the technology that I can hear people talk about turning live streaming into resources, into tickets, into funds, box office of sorts. But we don't have this technology. So what happens? How do we continue remaining part of the global art community? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I also feel like this is something that's really real for a lot of the people who are based in the United States, in terms of, I see someone who's just typed up clapping, loud clapping. Yay! But for many of us who are inside the United States, if you're not based in an urban center, your digital connectivity might not be robust or existent at all. So please feel free to bring up all of these things. And thank you. That was really, that was beautiful and useful. All right, who else would like to share either what's going on literally in their place in the world? It's useful. It's very useful for us to hear regionally what different communities are going through. Or if you just want to share what's happening in your head and your heart. Excellent. We have someone here in the physical space. If you could please introduce yourself, tell us who your company is. Thank you.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Amelia Ampuero. I'm the artistic director of Duke City Repertory Theater here. And I'm, a comrade in arms with Tricklock and with the folks from Cardboard Playhouse and everything. And I think, so my company literally just closed the show on Sunday and we don't have anything slated until the end of April. So we're all feeling a little bit of like survivor's guilt, and trying to figure out like, how do we best use the fact that this is technically an off period for us, an off season for us, to be here to help. So we are trying to be advocates for the companies that are sort of suffering, feeling the effects of this devastation, and figuring out how to be advocates, how we can share the stuff so that people don't have to go to Julie, for instance, to be like, where do I donate? Like, I have that information, I can post it for you. Let me help out in that way. But yeah, that's kind of where we're at, because, we just happened by the grace of the powers that be to not be affected right at this moment. I guess we don't really exactly know everything that's coming down the pipeline. The big thing for me is I've seen so many people talking about live streaming and recording and all of that stuff, but if you work with unions, that is a difficult thing. I love the idea of being able to put our work out more globally and doing that, but there are entities at work here that are not exactly down with that. So that's one of the things that I'm interested in, is how to work with the unions, with the guilds and all of that things, so that they understand, like, we do not have the luxury of not sharing. work if something like live streaming is something that's even available to us.
Yes. Do we have someone else in the physical space that wants to share something, or in the digital space that would like to share? Excellent. We have someone else here in the physical space, and feel free just to say something out loud. Oh, I see someone doing a hand. So, Hannah, I appreciate your support in getting digital folks into the conversation.
Yeah,
and let's
say yes.
Excellent.
Hi, I'm Elsa Menendez. I'm a member of Tricklock Company, and just want to put into the air also an awareness of this time of many people losing resources and needing resources, including some of our audience members. And so I'm just thinking about a comment that was made online recently about this idea that we do want as much as possible to encourage people to donate their tickets to our organizations, but that there are some people who are also losing work in various ways and can't do that. And there's just something kind of coming up for me around not being careful to be supportive of what people need to do. On this person I'm specifically thinking of, Julie right away piped in from our company and said, if you can't return your tickets, it's okay. Like, so there's just this edge of how do we at once get it clear to the powers that be in the world outside of us that we need support, and also not shame anyone for their inability to hold that support at this time. So just that awareness. Thank you.
I believe it was Shannon that had raised. Did you raise your hand? Excellent. Let's hear from Shannon.
Hey, it's Shannon over here in Louisville, Kentucky with Looking for Lilith Theater Company. Where we're at in Louisville, things have just progressed pretty rapidly in about, I'd say about 48 hours time, where we've gone from people considering postponing to everything in the city shutting down, including like libraries and community centers and just everything. And I guess I'm really thinking about maybe a philosophical question, like what is the real work? We were about to move a show into the Kentucky Center. We were supposed to load in tomorrow, and they announced yesterday they're going to close for 30 days. We were already ready to cancel the production, but the work is done. You know, the work in the rehearsal room is done, and the coming together as an ensemble is done. And what is this part of, does it not exist until somebody sees it? And I'm thinking about that both philosophically and also in terms of funding. We tend to do pretty well with grants, and if we lose the box office on this production, it will hurt, but it will not cripple us. And I guess I also have some questions for funders in the nonprofit world. If projects that have been grant funded are unable to go on because of this, what are our reportables? Because it's more than an audience seeing something that is the work. And then just back to kind of where we are in Kentucky, you know, the Derby is coming, which for us is like Mardi Gras, and the Derby probably won't happen. And that is devastating financially for the city and for all of the individual artists involved in Derby activities in one way or another. So I feel like we keep talking about the next few weeks, and I just fear the reality of the next many months. And I'm done. Thank you.
I think I have
for me to respond to the funder question right now.
Yes,
I have an answer on that too.
Okay, excellent. Well, I'm going to pass the microphone to physical space. And yes, please, Alisha, I saw you perk up, and I feel like you might have some wisdom to share, a little bit of wisdom. But again, this is an ongoing, evolving issue. So thank you.
It is, yeah. Just the tiniest bit of information to share. And we'll, toward the end of this call, share a little more about some things that are happening nationally and regionally in terms of folks who are advocating on all of our behalfs. But I think I came unmuted, so now I'm remuted, I think. Yeah, great. To respond specifically to the question about funders and deliverables, know that everyone is deep in these conversations. As you spoke to, it seems like this past week in particular, a lot sort of started to happen just in the last sort of 2, 3, 4 days. And even that quickly, there's an organization, Grantmakers in the Arts, that some of you may be aware of. NET is a national partner member with GIA in order to be able to help pass along the voices of all of you and what's happening on the ground with our members into those conversations. Grantmakers in the Arts is a membership organization like NET, but that specifically serves all of the foundation, arts agencies, private foundations, corporate foundations, all in an institutional way is a member of Grantmakers in the Arts. So they are having a lot of conversations internally already. There are started to be some coming out already from the NEA, from the Mellon Foundation, and often some of the smaller and regional funders tend to follow the lead of some of those national or larger funders. But already those funders are making statements, making very clear that they understand what is happening in this moment for all of us and are very interested in ways to be as flexible as possible and adjust what is happening with current grants and activities that may be canceled or postponed. So know that that is all very much on people's minds. NET ourselves, in the little bit of grant making we do through our NET 10 program, have been having these conversations as well. And we'll be announcing probably on Monday an extension of our upcoming grant deadline and reaching out to our current grantees to say very much the same thing, that, hey, if that travel that we gave you a grant for can't happen in this period or is going to happen differently or not at all, let's work with you to figure out how to make sure you can keep those funds, have them support something that is still happening, because we know how important that is right now.
Thank you. I still want to make sure we have room just to hear from some other voices that we haven't heard, either regionally. I see you, fellow board member Godfrey Simmons. Do you want to speak up? I saw you just raise your hand. All right. Yeah. Oh, everyone's excited. All right. Of course. All right. We're about to hear from Godfrey. Let's hear from him.
Press Shift A to mute. Okay. Can you hear me? Awesome. Great, good. But I can't hear anybody else. Okay, great. Good. Yeah, well, I'm here in Godfrey Simmons. I'm in Hartford, Connecticut. And I'm about to clear out to get back to my family in Ithaca, New York. There's been an interesting thing. Everybody in the Northeast has basically shut everything down, basically. I know things are different I heard that things are different in Bloomsburg. But yeah, all the theaters have kind of shut down. We've been fortunate that we haven't actually had to, our season wasn't really going to start until May or mid-May, end of May. We're still trying to kind of figure out what's happening there. With my old theater company, Civic Ensemble in Ithaca, my brilliant partner, Sarah, had just kind of put up a reentry theater program and that production. And these folks who had been working on it got to perform it twice. And it was devastating to kind of have to cancel that in terms of what they've been working on. It's been kind of like a 3-year process, like a workshop production 3 years ago, and then another year and a half of working on stuff, building a whole other play, and now they've gotten to the point where they're performing this thing. We're also, that's going to be, they got to do a couple of performances, and we're going to streamline, like we're going to do that live stream thing with it. And that's a bit of a panacea, but it's challenging. It's challenging, and it feels more challenging than, like, you know, I don't know, a show at Hartford Stage, and you're like in it and you're like, oh man, that really sucks doing a show. But the community that's been developed by these group of folks who are returning from incarceration is amazing. And we have that to hang on to, which is great. But the ability to share that work and to share their truths in terms of what it is to return from incarceration and what the issues are was pretty devastating. And it made us think of, Sarah and I were talking, and I'm wondering if there's a way for us as a theatrical community or just a art making community to think about how we can then connect with the wider public. I keep thinking about like a national story circle or some kind of way that we could actually figure out how to keep storytelling happening. Maybe that's in a digital space. Maybe there's like a bunch of like regional hubs that are kind of convening, you know, like just, I don't know, maybe in the Northwest, there's like a hub in like Portland, and maybe there's like, you know, we're a hub, you know, in Ithaca or Hartford. But I'd be willing to try to figure out kind of how we can connect, because I think people want to share the stories. People are going to get lonely. People are, we're talking about isolation. It's just like, that's just so many things. And so I just want to know if there's a way, and I'd be willing to kind of, again, help coordinate it and figure it out, but that we could kind of have that kind of a thing. Claudia, I see you. Please shut me up and like jump in.
No, I'm gonna unmute myself now. Like I said, this hand signal is just to be like, oh, we just want to make sure everybody has a chance to talk, because I know if I'm talking, I talk for 35 minutes.
Exactly. Yes.
Realizing I did not say anything about the Fury Factory Festival and what our plans are for something that's happening in July. Do we have any community members that have festivals or gatherings that are happening a few months from now? And can you share, you know, how that might be impact? I see Sabrina from the Co-Festival raising her hand, so I shall, I'm gonna mute myself, and please talk.
So it's a challenging time. I'm personally finding that it's like being in limbo. I am having a hard time focusing because I don't know how to work right now. We're supposed to be doing part of the Macrofest at the very end of July and the beginning of August. We take place on the Amherst College campus. Amherst has sent everybody home for the rest of the semester. All of the colleges in this area, and it is an area that is completely supported by colleges. That is the industry here in Western Massachusetts, have sent everybody home. And they're not coming back. Maybe graduation, maybe not. But I can't get anything out of the summer programs office at Amherst College. So my quandary now is I want to give artists hope and potential interns and all those folks, because I'm still hiring and still, you know, selecting final parts of the season and panelists for the Macrofest thing and everything else. But also I don't want to give people false hope. I want to know, one of the questions I have, is it better for people to know earlier or later? Like, is it better to keep things going in the happen, or is it better to let people know earlier that it isn't and that we want to do it next year so they can plan more effectively, or other ways, especially as we're supposed to be premiering several new pieces this year. And then of course I feel it because I've lost all my freelance work. you know, so, and just got a letter saying your health insurance is canceled. But yeah, it's an interesting time. So for other artists out there, anybody have any feelings about knowing early rather than knowing late, hope, not hope, those kinds of things? And I'm going to mute myself.
Excellent. That was a beautiful question. I just looked up at the physical space to see, is there any responses? Maybe, oh, I should not be the one with the microphone. That somebody else pass it around.
I mean, I can talk about a very short range because I can back up to the chair. Okay.
Really, we just want to make sure we're capturing your voice since my computer is far away from you.
Hi, everybody. This is Amelia Amparo from Duke City Repertory Theater again. I can talk about this very much in the short frame, but we're also different because the production that we're getting ready to do has one rehearsal. We're not in a venue, we're in bars, and that kind of a thing. The way that our first performance of this next project is slated currently April. Like we're in a spot where we're just having to go with the flow, and we're just having to sort of say, you know, like we're prepping these things, be doing the work on your own, and it's just going to have to be like a day by day thing. So I don't actually know how helpful this is for anybody, but that I think is the only way that we can sort of move forward right now, because we are looking at 6 weeks out. It's not 2 weeks, it's not 3. And I think we will have more information hopefully soon. Hopefully when the next 2 weeks are sort of done, we'll have a better idea. But I think we're also looking to err on disseminating information as, I don't want to say as quickly as we can, but with time, because we know people have other projects, we know people have lives and that kind of thing. So just, I absolutely hear the thing of being in limbo, and I think I'm going to move my head a little bit so I'm in the front of that spotlight. Yeah, but I think we're trying to do that so that we are not holding up artists from doing anything else down the road.
I see 2 really beautiful responses via the chat, and I want to make sure, since this is being recorded and will be accessible for folks to view later, Naomi or Liza, do you want to just say what you said, what you typed, or would you like for me to just read it? I think it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. I'm going to let you all talk for yourselves. Go ahead, say it.
I can say, so I have a conference in Montreal in May, at the end of May. And for the last 2 weeks, several of the organizers have just been planning, trying to figure out what would work to go virtual. So I kind of agree with just like taking it day by day, but like being transparent that it might cancel and waiting, because I really want to go to Montreal.
This is Liza in Detroit, and I feel like there's so much time before the festival and everyone is in crazy limbo. I mean, everyone I know here is out of projects. Like we were supposed to present Double Edge after the festival, you know, down in New Mexico. That's not happening. Our tour that we had in May, not happening. So we've like opened up basically for the whole year. And I know there are other people like that. So then like, what are the possibilities for the festival with this amount of time? Because I know the residencies are really important to artists, or the development thing that you do. And also like, well, I have a friend in Hong Kong who's been running live streaming, who runs the free, what's it called? It's like the Art Center of Kowloon, and they've been live streaming performances for like a month and a half now. So this gives you the time that, you know, Howl Around is there. Could you live stream performances? There's like time to figure it out. I don't know. For me, having something on the horizon and someone who would be like, I will do this, we will figure it out, even if it's weird, would be really helpful.
Please, yes, please go ahead. We have another voice here in the physical space. Please jump in.
Hi. I also just want to say, I don't know if this is helpful, Sabrina, but I do want to I try to think, like, what did I do wrong? Did I not see something a couple weeks ago? Because what I will say is being in the middle, or not, we weren't even in the middle, being several days into the festival, and then having everything in like 48 hours just go down is a kind of devastation I can't even express. I just really can't. I mean, we are just, probably, like hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. I think that's what is going to end up happening for us. Like, we're looking at getting rid of our space, shutting our doors for a couple of years while we recoup. It's that kind of devastation. So the only thing I would say is, I'm like, what if I was a couple months out? What would I do? And so I'm only saying this like a precautionary tale of, be careful about how far you get in case, there is cancellation that has to happen quick, because it's much worse, I feel like, than if I saw it coming. And then the other thing is, I do wonder, about like, I think doing something here, whether it is this digital work, whether it's, what can we do in working with foundations? Like, can we instead use the money instead of festival? This is what we're gonna do, or something, I don't know, and then push the festival to next year, or in a waiting position or something like that. So I know, again, that's not very helpful. I don't know, Sabrina, with COVID and everything, but just be careful about getting too far into it, because I didn't realize the devastation.
I'm reminded that are in rural with ongoing issues of smoke and fire, and how difficult it is to problem solve for the unknown or for the inconsistent. Do we have anybody else in the digital space? Transitioning in about 5 minutes to starting to brainstorm what are our next conversations, our group conversations, to help problem solve and figure stuff out. And then we'll be sharing all of the many resources that we have on hand now. But is there anyone in the digital space that would like to, again, I see a hand raised from Australia. Yes, please. I cannot hear you, Tim.
Hello. Okay.
There we go.
Yeah, good. So yeah, this issue of hope and when to start again is really what I've been putting most of my thoughts into. We were looking at July, August, but had to consider what the mood might be then, whether it'll still be a case of the mood is don't do anything, stay inside, or whether it will have shifted, which it will at some point shift to a point where we can't stay indoors forever and we need to normalize and we need to start doing something regardless of whether everybody's sick. Otherwise we will face like an economic collapse that's worse than the disease itself. So at some point that will shift to a point where we have to start doing something to get people out. And just a note on the live streaming, I think potentially there is that point where we can plan something and then have the live streaming there as a reassurance to people who do need to self-isolate, that if they want to be part of something, and that we can sell a ticket to them and that gives them an option. But I'd like to also say that live streaming isn't theatre in my perspective. Theatre is about people in a space. And that's the key thing about it for me. It's the intimacy of sharing stories in a shared space, and that's what's important. So we could look at, is there a way to fill a theatre with a third as many people or a quarter as many people, where everyone has two seats either side of them and they're doing the distancing, everyone's washing their hands. There's a way to get an audience in a space that is safe, even in the midst of a pandemic. We can look at what those options are. We also can look at, just in terms of the financial situation, that we are not the only ones hurting, that businesses rely on people going out to have a good time. So a lot of the work that we do in our festival is actually all about venue, all about getting businesses to host performances. So performing in non-traditional spaces that aren't theatres. There's also some marketing benefits to that, to the business. I feel like those kinds of relationships are worth building because they will be hurting, bars, restaurants will be hurting, and getting a performer in that space is a way to get people out, and that there's got to be smart ways of getting people still having that theatre intimacy experience when we need to start normalizing after the lockdown phase. Okay, that's me.
I'm muted. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say a couple of things just to bounce off of that. One is, thank you for saying out loud that the work that we do is about being in physical space and creating artwork together. And this new challenge is definitely bringing us into interaction with that. So thank you for bringing that up. I invite others to bring that up as well. Also, you are right now experiencing a digital interaction that's being done for a space that's not designed for digital interactions. We are taxing this Wi-Fi so hard. So, and yeah, so it's crashing and things are freezing and stuff. So hopefully you're still all connected. You're still here with us. Luckily, I'm recording this, so it will be shared as well. But I see your little boxes bouncing back and forth as our internet freaks out because we're using it hard. So that's another thing to be keeping in mind for these digital interactions. So Anne-Marie, thank you for that beautiful chat. She just it said, for every $1 in arts funding, it creates $8 in collateral economic activity. So one of the big things that we've just been talking about is how we're all part of this huge ecological, economic ecology. And not only are we as freelancers and small theaters and ensemble groups going to be suffering from our direct losses, but also our supporters are going to be in some kind of challenge as well. I see John hand up, and John had said that he had some stuff to share with us earlier in the conversation. Oh, thank you. And Naomi, yes. So let's get John, Naomi, and then we're going to transition to brainstorming future conversations. So go ahead, John, and then Naomi.
The information was about funding, and Alisha kind of covered that for me. My question is it possible that out of this,
right then Naomi, what did you have?
No, I'm not finished. Out of this conversation, would it be possible for us to for there to be a place to share best practices around live streaming? Yeah, because this is something that we are kind of trying to learn our way around, and I have a feeling some people already know how to do it, and that would be helpful.
Yes, I'm going to also name that because of the inconsistent Wi-Fi, there's a bit of a delay. So forgive me if I'm ever interrupting or talking over you, because you're literally freezing on me, John. Did you finish your question?
Yes, I hope you heard it. Yes, I'm finished.
Yes, we did.
Thank you.
Yes, HowlRound. I love this community. Y'all are on it. Because we were just being like, yeah, HowlRound already has that. You can grab the link to that. And somebody has already done it. Brilliant. Yes, on the board. Yes. There is a Facebook group I just started, which is a transmedia producing Facebook group for us to be exchanging processes. So yes, yes, and yes. Naomi.
So Naomi in Baton Rouge, I've been thinking regarding what Tim said about, I'm glad you said that live stream. Sorry.
You're awesome.
My screen just switched. It threw me. I'm glad you said that live streaming is not theater. I've been thinking about this a lot recently. I just finished my dissertation on virtual touch and connection in digital spaces. I was mostly looking at interactive installation art, looking at telematics and like using Kinect and motion sensors. But the last couple of days I've been thinking about this issue, and I haven't really talked about it a lot because the technology we have doesn't really allow for intimacy or intimate touch. And so just, I want to think about ways to use this technology. And I got off track. So what I'm going to say is one of the big things that came out of my research is that using the qualities of the medium of of live streaming or whatever technology we find, rather than trying to make it the same as in-person connection. And I think that is a direction where we, if we have to keep doing distance stuff, that's the direction we need to go. I'm gonna mute now.
Thank you so much. Again, I just want to invite folks to say that out loud. So Tawana, do you want to say your comment out loud? And I'm going to pass the microphone to Alisha. Okay, brilliant. It's true. This is me trying to do the complicated practice of not wanting to lose the awesomeness of the chat for the folks who are going to watch this video later.
Folks in the room.
The space that can't see the chat either. Yes, so
the comment in the chat, though, just to say it out loud, is I'm so curious about revisioning and redefining intimacy, which I think it will be a good segue into the conversations about sort of actioning and revising and reimagining what our work is in just a moment. But Alisha, do you want to?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to the resource collection call for a second, just to say, I know that many of the resources that are being compiled have been mentioned or thrown out in the chat, but also to let you know, like many of our colleagues, NET is also curating onto a page that will be on our website in the next couple of days.
Thank you.
Sorry. Myself, yes. Just sort of a curated way to find many of those links. So know that that is coming very soon. So if you're not frantically copying down any of these resources that get shared out, or if they're in the chat and therefore not in the archived version of this, you'll be able to go to the NET website very soon to look for things that we feel might be specifically of use for our community.
So I was going to segue us into, let's brainstorm our different topics, but it feels like the natural segue is to perhaps segue into this. These are the resources we have on hand because we've already started sharing them. So I want to pass the microphone really forcefully to Hannah, and also do a shout out. I see Nicole Brewer was on the call. I want to just do a shout out to anyone else who is participating digitally to also please feel free to drop links in the chat and say out loud what you're working on in the future. I'm super excited about the conversation on Monday.
And the reason, thank you, Claudia. The reason why we wanted to sort of give a couple good resource aggregates right now before we transition is because one of the things that we've been talking about is sort of the redundancy that might happen in this moment. And instead, like we've mentioned HowlRound, like the work digitally that Claudia has been doing forever, there are folks and there are networks and there are organizations that already have this knowledge, and instead we have an opportunity, instead of creating a lot of different sort of things poking out and dissipating our energy, we can collectivize around the resources that already exist, right? So we wanted to share a couple really good resource lists and also one sort of national advocacy call before we then as a community start talking about what are the specific conversations and actions we want to take that are particularly impactful for the ensemble theater community. So the three lists that I wanted to share, maybe four lists I wanted to share. First one, the New England Foundation for the Arts.
NAFA, yeah.
Yes. I was only slowing down because Claudia, it looked like you were throwing me a hand motion.
No. I have arms that move randomly. that was just my body.
Excuse our little hiccup. Yes, so NAFA, the New England Foundation for the Arts, has a great list, and I can pop the link in the chat. Thank you, Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie, actually, can you pop the links in for me?
I'm doing it right now. I'm going.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks, Claudia. So they have a great comprehensive list. Creative Capital also has a fantastic list of artist resources that are supportive and are for all sorts of artists and all disciplines. NPN, National Performance Network, has a fantastic list that also includes quite a bit of information around interrupting bias in this moment when stakes are heightened, and there have been numerous incidents of racism perpetrated against Chinese American folks, Asian American folks. So particularly learning how to interrupt microaggressions, etc., macroaggressions, etc. And then Anne-Marie mentioned this yesterday, but Anne-Marie, Abigail, Nicole, and myself started about 48 hours ago, fairly accidentally, creating a list explicitly designed for independent artists and freelancers. That is a list of free resources from how to move your teaching and teaching artist work online to how to look for emergency funds in your community, both GoFundMe funds and also foundation funding. Things like free yoga classes and mental health for spending this time in isolation. And we have also compiled a virtual events tracker there too. It's small right now, but the sort of tracking system that this is a totally crowdsourced resource. We're checking pretty consistently throughout the day. So as virtual events for our entire arts community show up, we're gonna them on that database independent capacity. The last thing that I wanted to mention, I know Alisha is going to talk a moment about this as a Performing Arts Alliance board member, is the TCG Theater Communications Group and Performing Arts Alliance issue advocacy at the national level around relief funds for artists and arts organizations. Claudia, that link's in there too if you want to pop it in. Oh, she did already. You can click there, and that's a really easy, simple tool that TCG and PAA have created. And this has been going on forever. The advocacy alerts, thanks to these organizations, have been going on forever. But you can literally just write in your name, your district, etc. There's a pre-populated message there about advocating for relief funds, and you can personalize it if you want, or you can just click send. So we're just trying to get as many signatures and as much real weight behind that advocacy as we possibly can. Alicia.
Yeah. Do you want me to talk about national advocacy
before I pass to you?
I'm just posting the link for the conversation that you're leading tomorrow. Again, just doing a shout out to Nicole and
I'm
all
about
the
to
other.
talk about the thing that Anne-Marie put in the chat right now.
Brilliant.
So
Please.
Maybe I'll talk about that really quickly.
I have information specifically from PAA about the relief package.
Let's talk.
No, go ahead. You go first.
I love y'all. All right, so we're going to do a quick shout out to the project. Nicole, Anne-Marie, other people who are already on this call have been working on Monday.
Great. So thanks for bearing with our transparent facilitation, folks. I had just been mentioning upcoming virtual events that are being listed on our little freelance artist aggregate, resource aggregate website. One of the events that is coming up in direct tandem with that list and produced by the folks who are managing the list is a Monday night webinar. It's going to be a 2-hour conversation filled with now like 12 or 13 amazing speakers and growing, activists, legal experts, national level funders, and folks who have activated emergency funding campaigns in their cities, educators, etc. Digital convening experts, all of whom are going to be sharing resources directly supportive of individual artists in this moment, allowing space for us to come together and learn and also try to build a little bit of solidarity in the individual artist community, in which isolation is probably going to be felt in some of the most extreme ways. So that's on HowlRound, and you can find it really through any of these pathways, any of these links that we're putting up here. You can probably get access to that webinar, but it is just going to be streamed live, and it'll probably be not only on their Facebook live stream, but other organizations' live streams as well. So it's Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern.
Thank you so much. Now I would love to pivot to talk a little bit more about some of this national advocacy stuff. Thank you so much for your leadership.
Okay, I'm super excited about that Monday thing happening as well. So let me shift my brain for a second. Just to let you all know, we've referred to some of these things as we've gone through, but some of the work that
Sorry, every time spotlight you at mute.
That's okay. Okay, here we go. Some of the work that Net and all of our colleague sister national art service organizations are doing on behalf of all of our members all the time is advocacy work. And one of the key places that happens through is an organization that Hannah referred to, the Performing Arts Alliance. Is a consortium of 15 of the art service organizations that are representing all areas of the performing arts field. So
Can't hear anymore.
We can't hear you.
Apologies, we just had the internet go off and then it just went back on. Unfortunately, it went off on my computer, which was the one that was running everything. I think we just lost the last 2 minutes of what you were saying. Okay. It looks like everything else is still working, so please continue talking. I think we're back online. Apologies for that hiccup. Go right ahead.
Okay, I'll back up just a little bit. So Performing Arts Alliance, 15 national service organizations representing all of the different fields of the performing arts, everything from NET to TCG, Dance USA, League of American Orchestras, Chorus America, and Opera America, on and on and on. And we are all working throughout the year to advocate for all of generally in an ongoing way. That work is around federal policy that is happening, not just about NEA support, but also so many of the legislations and policies that get
Apologies, we are now back again. Not sure why we keep dropping, but we are back.
Okay. We are back. Okay. So there's any number of issues that that group is advocating for on a regular basis, everything from the wireless mic space. There's legislation that's happening to instruments that are getting brought in from other countries and the bans against, particular woods and ebonies and things. So there's any number of things that we're working on together all the time. But when things like this happen, know that there is a whole body already in place that is springing into action on all of your behalfs. And so a lot of that work has been going on and will continue. Hannah mentioned an effort that TCG led to create this space that people can be putting in information. And I urge you definitely, it's part of Annette's side of things, the reason for this call today, but anytime that we put a call out for this kind of story gathering from you all, part of what we're doing is trying to collect information, both so that we understand how to be responsive in the ways that are most useful to you, but also so that we have ammunition, frankly, to use in case making in some of this advocacy work. Some of the organizations that are in the Performing Arts Alliance have designated government affairs staff who are actively in DC, in offices with Congress people all the time, working on these issues for us. So that is what has been happening. There is, as some of you may know, I think someone dropped a link in the chat earlier, there is a bipartisan COVID-19 relief package that was just passed either late last night or this morning. I've gotten different reports, but that came through the House, and I will pull up our colleagues at the League of American Orchestras, it's part of PAA, sent us out a summary of that this morning, and that is basically something that is putting in place mandatory emergency paid leave for employees, for qualified sick leave, family medical leave. It's also including some refundable payroll tax credits for emergency paid leave for small employers. It also is including individual tax credits for leave taken by self-employed workers. So that is going to be a refundable tax credit, as well as emergency funding to states for unemployment compensation and a number of things. So there are pieces in that relief package that PAA and many independent sector, that is all nonprofits across all disciplines and sectors beyond just the arts. Many of those things are things that we have been pushing for. Questions about some of those things cover and what they don't, the ways specifically that the nonprofit sector and the arts are being impacted, that we will be continuing to push for in these ways. So as I said, anytime you get sort of these calls out to help us gather information to make those cases, it can be really helpful. Some other things that are happening, I mentioned earlier, Grantmakers in the Arts and some of that advocacy work that is happening on your behalf. Those conversations, but also we've been in touch with the NEA a lot through this last week, all of us working with our program officers in
we are relaunching again. Yeah. Again, though, this is us modeling what it's going to be like doing digital connectivity in space design for that. So we're all doing a great job. However, I know that I noticed that I've been frozen for a while and I wasn't sure if everyone could hear us. So I'm going to pause and ask our digital participants, what's the last thing you heard? Anybody speak up.
NEA.
NEA. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Thank you.
Great. So I think you got most of where I was. So the NEA, we've been in conversations with this last week. The FAQ that they recently put out, I think in the last day or two, just reassuring folks what I mentioned earlier about the leniency around and adjustments. That statement and it coming out quickly was part of the the scenes work that's been happening with PAA this week to encourage them to move in that direction. But we're also continuing to talk with them. Some of you who have been around for a while may remember back in the economic downturn in 2008, 2009, there was a special grant and funds that the NEA made available to help with economic hardship and losses, the kind of things that Julie and so many of you have been talking about. So pushing for those kinds of things to be put in place is some of the work that we are already starting to do and will continue to be doing in the coming months to see just how much we can try to target relief and support toward all of your organizations that we know are going to be hurting so much in this coming year. Is there anything I've left out? Also, unions, I know that has come up as well. And I think particularly as so many people try to explore new live streaming options, that is going to become more and more of a conversation. Those kinds of advocacy work, that kind of advocacy work as well is something that I know that we will all be working on in the coming months too. I think that's all I've got for now.
Thank you for that beautiful download. I know there's more to come. I see, so I recall that I had, Hester had done a hand raise. I'm not sure if that was a housekeeping hand raise, just to be like, we can't hear you anymore. And then I also see Sabrina with a hand raise. So just taking a moment. Hester, did you have something to share with us?
Yes, I do.
Yes, please, thank you. And then Sabrina.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, thank you.
So I just wanted to talk for a moment about the idea of resources, because I think we're getting into very deep waters in this conversation, and we're having a conversation that's a combination between the logistics and how are we going to get by, but also a deeper conversation on how do we utilize the resources that we have, how do we find resources, how do we get really imaginative about resources. And I don't just mean, you know, the NEA and the government, who we hope very much will help us in every way possible. I lived through Hurricane Irma. I'm in Florida, though I'm not from Florida. And I've been thinking a lot about how can we get very imaginative for two different purposes. One purpose is how do we as artists work during this time to raise other people's morale, even though for the most part ours is very, very low. I feel a huge responsibility towards this because I'm a theater director and I'm also a director of education. I just halted rehearsal on 2 different productions, as well as I'm about to go online for about 30 different programs, including musical theater programs. So as I look at all of us fading in and out, I do wonder how we're gonna have a musical theater rehearsal, but we will. But I'm also thinking about, so I'm thinking about that, about how to lift spirits, how to take leadership, and also how do we get very imaginative about sharing the very few resources that we do have. For example, this is in response to something Tim was saying, that a lot of you were saying about intimacy, and about something a few theaters are doing, which is that there's a space between seats. And I was thinking about the fact that I worked for many years at the Hawaii Theater, which is a 1,400 seat old 1922 vaudeville house. And it's not optimal for some things, but what it is optimal for is that it would be very easy to do a production for 300 people there with a lot of space between the seats. So the Hawaii Theater could, for example, share its resources by opening its doors to these smaller productions so that the productions didn't have to close or could only be postponed, but they could be there in a way that's safe for everybody. John was talking about live streaming, and I think when we hear about live streaming a theater production, the operas are absolute geniuses at this, but most theaters are not, and most of us don't have, you know, like the Met has this incredible equipment, like the, you know, cameras that are rolling along the stage, TV stations have incredible equipment, but most of us are not professional videographers. But maybe that's another way that we could share our resources in a way that doesn't cost us anything and in a way that helps each other. Because in this time, I don't know about where you all are,
but I could, if I sold a roll of toilet paper on the street right now, I would make $5,000 in Florida, because people are hoarding resources and like grabbing things in this way that's so weird and creepy and uncomfortable and makes me feel like I'm living in a sci-fi dystopian novel. Like, people's behavior is more upsetting to me than the pandemic. And as for the person, I think it was Claudia who was talking so much about blaming herself about not having foreseen this. I think that was Claudia, right? The lady, the beautiful lady with long white hair, long blonde hair. We could not have foreseen it. We could not have foreseen that there was a pandemic, and hardly any of us in the performing arts have any resources that we could say, oh yes, here's our extra $1 million. Here's our extra endowment in case a pandemic comes along. But what we can do is use our imagination to figure out how we can support each other with the resources we do have, because at least we still have our brains and our minds and our imaginations, which I think artists are very, very good at that, since we don't have a lot more. And we also have spaces. A lot of us have spaces, we have equipment, we have skills. And I would love to have a conversation later about how can we think in those ways moving forward, and how can we be like an international model for figuring out how to not just keep ourselves by ourselves afloat, but how to address these issues that are being brought up, like by Godfrey, of this intense loneliness that's coming upon people, by making sure that all of us survive. The end.
Thank you. So we are going to be transitioning the conversation into the space of trying to set us up for the next conversations. This is not the last digital convening that we are going to be holding as an ensemble field to brainstorm the future and also assess the present. But before we do that, I recognize that I had Sabrina on deck. Please, the microphone is yours.
Thank you. So just piggybacking on what you were saying about visibility and invisibility, and something that Alisha was saying too, I think it's so important to remember, particularly with thinking about NET's membership, that many of our members are not on regularly employment contracts, where they're not getting a weekly salary. And I want to make sure that those folks do not become invisible in the discussions about anything that might mitigate this situation. I think that's important. Yep. One of the things I am hearing is that the arts and creative fields are being mentioned in some circles. I think it's important to work not just from the sort of national level down, or even the global level down, but also from the local level. And I was very pleased to see local politicians, state representatives and state senators on local television yesterday talking about needing to support the creative sector, needing to support freelance people and things like that. So I think our advocacy should be national, yes, but I think, and in our own communities, but also I think working on a local level politically is also extremely important, and where we could have, if it comes from both directions, it's much more likely to be effective.
Thank you, thank you. We're doing this, I love the complex thing we're doing, where we're like, clean the microphone, makes it so the microphone's unmuted. We also have so much amazing, awesome conversation happening in the chat. I am now really happy that I've been making sure we say our chat stuff out loud, since every time we get broken off of the internet, it deletes the chat from how we can view it. So we will be reposting every single link to the Facebook page, and also most of these resources are available in these aggregate spaces that we're sharing. But Shannon just left a beautiful comment that I thought was really beautiful, and Liza just gave a beautiful shout out as well. So I love both of these, and we're going to make sure that this is all transferred to the Facebook as well. Taking a quick moment, Shannon, would you like for me just to read your comment out loud, or do you want to share it?
Oh, I'm happy to share it. Yeah, I mean, where we are in Louisville, there are many independent theaters, and we share just a handful of black box spaces, usually for 2 to 3 week runs. And so just thinking ahead about when we come out on the other side of this. You know, if things come back to life in May, well, what about all the shows to reschedule for March and April together with the shows that are already meant to happen in May? And so I'm thinking about creatively sharing our runs together. You know, if you were planning to have 15 performances during your run, but you can link up with
Everyone's frozen on my end.
Did you all hear that?
No, but we have it written down and I'm copying it.
Okay, great. It's written down.
I could hear it.
Excellent. This is what I'm discovering. On my end, things freeze, but it feels like if it's someone else speaking, the conversation is going forward. So don't pause. If I'm like, what? Don't pause. You just keep talking. It seems like it's all right. I think we heard your entire comment. Thank you so much, Shannon. Yeah, and Tim had echoed that, saying, you know, we're gonna. Well, I'm just going to read your sentence because I love this sentence. We are the ones who will rebuild our culture as everyone emerges from their isolation. Yes! There's been a bunch of inspiring quotes. As we are transitioning to the closing moments of this conversation, we have about 20 minutes. I do want to make sure we're setting ourselves up for success for the next step. Like I said, this is not the last conversation we're going to be having. This is the first conversation. So I think Hester had mentioned, oh, this would be a good thing to talk about. I'd love to brainstorm some other places where we're gonna wanna connect and have some conversations, brainstorm sessions, whatever it is on our need that we need to be creating and crafting a connective space around. So I would just love to hear from folks.
And when you say places, you mean like topics, like
topics, yes.
Conversation topics.
Conversation topics, yes, thank you. And Kirsten, that's a good note. Say it out loud. Oh, no problem. I'm going to read this out loud then because it was a really good point. I would love to see more forums that put the great knowledge that the disability community has done on accessibility that speaks directly to this moment. So I know I'm going to be reaching out to Unsettling Dramaturgy, which is an international Crip and Indigenous colloquium of dramaturgs and thought leaders who have been connecting digitally for like a year. So I believe that they're going to have some great tools and resources to share with the larger community. But let's hear from some other folks. What do we got? What do we as a field want to talk about? Or what's a personal problem that you would just like for us to all collectively help you solve? Yes, please, Jennifer.
I think all these conversations we've been having about how we relate to our communities and our public are really important and valuable. And I'm also thinking about an additional conversation I think that would be helpful, that is, as ensemble theater companies who create work collaboratively together in a physical space together, how do we be ensembles when we cannot physically be in the same space together? Knowing that even if we can gather in small groups, that some of us have loved ones who are high risk. So we might not, or we ourselves might be high risk, or we work with artists who are high risk and immunocompromised. So the solution of, well, we're a small group, we can gather if we want, doesn't necessarily address that for me, because that still excludes artists who are high risk themselves or live with high risk people. And so I guess I'm really interested in exploring, how do we be ensemble when we cannot be in the same room together safely? Or how can we be in the room together safely when we have high risk people in our ensemble or connected to our ensemble? And how do we devise, you know, in a collaborative digital space? And we have lots of ideas for that. I'm with Looking for Lilith in Louisville with Shannon. And we have devised collaboratively online before, and we are excited about exploring that, especially in this time where everybody's at home and needs something to do. But I would love some more conversation about you know, how we do that together and what other people are doing. I'd love to hear about what other people are doing.
Yes, it is unmuted.
Yeah, I just want to, this is Hannah. I just want to lift up that yeah, it's fine.
Just talk loud.
I am doing so. So I popped a link into the doc, which is intended to be a gathering of topics. And also I can like sort of facilitate that chart that as we go, but if folks are interested in popping work right in there, go for it. Just calling that out.
Yes, please. I'm going to read Tyga's really great question. How do we open that question up to ensembles who are already working over distance who might not be on that call? So thank you for that question, and we're gonna find a way to do that because that's a really good question. We have someone here in the physical space. Julie, please.
Hi.
I don't know how to get that mic to talk, so just be loud.
I can't do anything.
Just be loud.
So I just want to say one of the things that is happening, one of the reasons that Ndede is here, we're actually, before all of this happened, we're doing, so there's a young ensemble in Kampala, and then one here in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And we've been creating work for the past several months digitally together through a WhatsApp group. The students have been going back and forth and creating work, sending videos, sending photos, writing letters, and doing this sort of like, digital pen pal thing. But then of course we did come together, that was the point, and we're spending, like 15 hours putting it together. And so, it's interesting that then this has happened. So we're learning a bit about it. And I'll try to figure out if there's a way for us to sort of give people the information, but we have decided we're going to perform that show tomorrow at 6 o'clock here. We've closed it to the public. So we're just inviting people that feel comfortable coming. So we stopped, it was a pay what you decide event anyway, but we just said we're not taking any more reservations. But maybe we could like Facebook Live it or something. We hadn't gotten that far because it's just been so crazy here. But just to see what these magnificent young people from Uganda and New Mexico have done over the work. So just throwing that out there.
Passing the microphone.
So this is exactly what we're hoping can emerge from this is, NET would love to put together a series of follow-up digital or webinar conversations like this in the weeks and months to come. So for instance, using this as an example of this, what are some best practices or things that we could learn from folks who have already been creating over distance using digital tools as Ensemble. So, for instance, if we could put together a call like that and hear from Julie and Stephen how they've been working internationally across distance. I don't know if Cynthia and Shyamala from Postnatal Collective are still on the call, but they are a transnational ensemble that has been devising internationally for the whole life of their company. So I think there are folks in the NET community who already have tremendous expertise and knowledge about this. So the more that we can unearth from all of you what your burning questions are, if we know what those topics are that are the most important, then we can put together a series of conversations like this to help us all share and learn from each other.
So I'm putting the microphone down. I'm going to give it to you. You're the tech man. Thank you. Just disinfect it and mute it. I see another question about intimacy and shared space, how to present theater safely in a physical space. That feels like one of the big topics. So we've had questions about how do you devise when you can't be physically present in the same space. We have a question about intimacy in shared space. How do you present theater safely? So that's devising and presenting. We had a conversation about disabled practices. What do they already have that they can share? What else do we got, my friends? I see someone raising their hands here in the physical space. Yes, please. I'm just going to say talk loud so I don't have to pass that microphone. Just shout.
Okay. Once again, this is Stephen from Uganda. And just three small things. Number one is while we are talking about all the technical and economic limitations, I wonder whether this network can also think about the liability and responsibility that directors and producers do have when we eventually put up productions, whether we have brought together numbers that are below the limitations and so legally okay, or whether we have brought together artists, and then calamities like these do befall people because of the creation and of the arts that we have put together. Number two is I've seen most of the conversation has been on the different means and ways that people in the United States can put together, and the National Endowment for the Arts and all these things, which we don't have back home. So I'm just wondering whether there is a possibility that organizations like this can have memberships from countries and continents like ours. Folks, we have some virgin stories that need to be told. I think you have told a lot of the stories in the United States. And finally, when we talk about, you have been talking about non-for-profit organizations, which are legal issues. While it is possible here that you can do a non-for-profit organizations and do a lot of work for a long time, in countries like ours, where you do not have public funding, you have to get personal resources, borrowed or otherwise, to put them into the creation of organizations and creation of art. And the non-for-profit law requires that you keep registering this organization every year. And it becomes the whim of the person registering to keep you on the register, to delete it. And if you have invested resources and then this organization deletes you, you don't know what to do with the artists and all this. So whether we can be able to collaborate with organizations here, even when legally we are not non-for-profit. We don't make profit, but we cannot have that luxury of creating an organization that some corrupt official can just delete on their whims.
And can I just say that it is such an amazing opportunity that this conversation is happening right here in this moment, because this is an international issue. And I'm also concerned and forecasting not only 8 weeks from now, 6 months from now, but a year from now, what is our capabilities going to be around international exchange? And I'm really thinking more financially rather than safety concerns. But I do want to make sure we don't accidentally lean into a universe where we become an isolated United States and we're not having this vital and amazing artistic exchange that I'm excited to experience tomorrow. All right, well, we are in the last 10 minutes of this conversation. If we were doing this where we were all in the same physical space, I would do that thing where I'm like, hey, everyone, say a word to close us out so we can all feel connected. I'm leaning out to my physical space room. Do you have any suggestions for a great way to close us out? Do we want to do just a yell of, ah! All right, so I think we just need to do a loud yap, a loud cry of frustration and energy and everything. So everybody unmute yourselves and go, ah! Friends, my colleagues, I'm so deeply inspired by all of you. And I also recognize that it is early days and this is an evolving situation. So please take care of yourselves, wash your hands, don't touch your face, but also meditate, eat healthy, stay connected with your friends and family, and stay connected with us because we're going to keep on addressing these issues. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you everyone here.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Everybody, thank you.
Thank you all. Y'all are fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Tricklock. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everybody.
Peace.
Folks are waving. Bye. I can't do it.
Julie, I just sent you a Facebook message.
I know, I'm responding to it right now.
Bye. Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody. Bye.
No.